Okay. Did you turn that one on, that microphone?
I just whispered that was too easy today.
Yeah. If it comes down, you can just lay it on the table. It'll still pick it up.
It's good.
It's on? Okay. Okay, good. All right. Well, good. Good morning. Glad to see everybody here today. So we are continuing what we started last week about working our way through Hebrews 11. Talking about, and Hebrews 11 is classified loosely as the Hall of Fame of faith, as we know a lot of sports and other, music and other stuff have halls of fame of their greatest players or musicians or whatever, the top in that particular sport. Right here in Charlotte, we have the NASCAR Hall of Fame for the top of the NASCAR drivers and stuff like that, where they get immortalized in there that they were one of the best. And so this is kind of that with some of the patriarchs in the Old Testament, talking about, the writer here of Hebrews is talking about that and about faith. And faith is important for us to have. It is something that we all need to have. And we talked about last week, it's as verse 1 says, it's the things hoped for, but the evidence of things not seen. And so, we see the chair, we see, but we can look at it and look and think, yeah, it's going to hold me, it's going to support me, because you can look at some chairs and tell that they're just probably not going to support you. Maybe they were designed for little kids, or they were old and wore out and falling apart, and you just wouldn't be a good idea to sit down on them and stuff. But you trusted those chairs, and there's a difference between faith and trust. But we do, we trust. We look at it. We can look at a chair and see. So that's where trust comes in, is that we can look and trust. Yeah, okay, I'm going to trust that chair is going to hold me. Whereas faith is like you don't see it. You don't you don't understand everything. You don't see it completely, and so and about the wind, I use the analogy of the wind, and I think that's a really good analogy because we don't see the wind, but we know it exists. We can feel it, right? We can see what the wind does. We can see the trees blowing, and sometimes we can see the wind blowing into a tornado, swirling, and dust storms, and we can see what the wind causes, the effects, and that's how we can see Jesus and God working in our lives, in lives of other people. We can see what the effects that has on those people's lives, and that's how we can build our faith, and that's how we can see it. And that's what he's saying here. Is he's going through a bunch of the patriarchs and a bunch of the people of the Old Testament and talking about them and stuff. And so we're going to continue through that. And so, will you read verses? I know it's a little bit. Last week we did get through Cain, but we're gonna go ahead and start in verse 4 through 8, or 4 through 7 for me.
4 through 7.
Yeah.
Faith at the dawn of history. By faith, Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice. A more excellent sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and through it he being dead still speaks. By faith Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found because God has taken him. For before he was taken, he had this testimony that he was pleased that, I'm sorry, y'all. By faith Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found because God had taken him. For before he was taken, he had this testimony that he pleased God. But without faith it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a reward of those who diligently seek him. By faith Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he commanded the world and became an heir of the righteousness which is according to faith.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, last week we talked about the beginning there of the chapter, and we also talked about Cain. And we didn't spend a lot of time on Cain because we had already done some deep dives on Cain in some previous lessons and gotten way out there on some things.
Yep.
And so we didn't, but we did talk about how that Abel, the thing about it is Abel had more faith than Cain did. Abel was more obedient than Cain was, is bottom line, because Abel brought the best of his sacrifice. He didn't just bring any old thing, and that's what the throughout the Old Testament, God got angry with the Israelites, because when even after they entered into the promised land, they got to the point where sometimes that they were bringing sacrifices that weren't worthy of God. Do we bring God our best? Do we give God our best, or do we give God our leftovers? And so we should be, because God deserves our best for all He's done for us. He deserves our best, and so we need to give Him our best. And Cain wasn't doing that, and Cain didn't have the heart to do that. Cain was just trying to just get by. What's the matter? You look.
No, it's just my face.
Oh. Well, that's what's concerning me, is your face.
Yeah, it just does that. No, I'm just listening. My face does that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good. I just was like, you looked like you were confused, and I was like, okay. All right.
No,
Good.
just ignore what the face says.
All right. I got you. I got you. All right. So, but anyway, so yeah, we see that, and so we should be giving God our best. And by faith, we're called to do that. We're called to, because we have the faith to believe that, what has been done for us on the cross and what has been handed down to us through the scriptures and everything else that has been done, is we believe that. We have the faith that God is working. We feel God. We know God working in our lives. We see the effects of God working in our lives, like the wind and stuff. And so that's kind of where we talked about with Abel, and then also with Cain. But Abel was he had faith that he offered a better sacrifice to God because of. I gotta quit looking.
I'm sorry.
You're okay. But yeah, so I usually look at everybody to try to make sure everybody's still with me, and you're just like.
I promise it's just my face.
Okay, that's fine. I'll get used to it. It's fine. It's fine. No problem. So, but we see that. So, okay, and so. And even though Abel was dead, even though Cain killed Abel, because God blessed him more or accepted his sacrifice, his testimony still speaks to us, even today, because we have the account written for us, and we see that. Okay? So now we're going to move on to verse 5 about Enoch. It says, by faith, and I'll read it since you had a lot of trouble with this one. It says, by faith, Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found, because God had taken him. For before he was taken, he had this testimony that he pleased God. Okay? I think some translations kind of word it a little bit differently, but basically it's, I think, one passage in Genesis where it talks about it. Genesis 5:18 through 24. It says, Jared lived 162 years and begot Enoch. After he begot Enoch, Jared lived 800 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 360 65 years. And Enoch walked with God and was not, for God took him. All right. So, what do you think about if you have that close of a relationship with God that someday God just decides, I'd rather have you here with me than on earth, and just takes you and you don't have to experience death?
That would be nice.
Yeah, it sure would.
That would. So, but unfortunately, there's only two in the Bible that, in the Old Testament, that didn't. There's only, let me rephrase this. There's only two that are recorded in the Bible, in the whole Bible, that didn't face death. Just because we don't have a record of their death doesn't mean they didn't die. But we know for sure that Enoch did not, because it says God took him. And who was the other one? Do you know? Huh? Elijah. And that's the way I want to go out. That's the way I want to go out. Chariot of fire come down out of the sky and scoop me up and take me away. Yeah, that's the manly way to go out. Yeah. So that would be the way I would want to go. Just they're looking for me and a missing thing. That's no. So, but is there a chance that what happened to Enoch can happen to us?
Don't know that anybody's that pure. God just wants to come scoop them up.
What's the average of that?
Well, yeah. Okay. All right. But
I mean, he could.
he could. Oh yeah, God can do whatever he wants.
Exactly.
God can do what he wants.
Exactly.
But some people,
Gosh.
some commentators,
Mm-hmm.
link this to the rapture. At some point, God's just going to come back, or Jesus is going to come back, and he's just going to take everybody. Everybody's just going to disappear. All the believers that are on earth at that time that are going to heaven are just going to disappear. They're just poof, gone. And that's in 1 Thessalonians 4:13-18 that they bank that on, where it says, Paul says, we will be caught up to join him in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have a hard time with that, and I've made no secret about the fact that I am not I do not believe that it's a pre-trib rapture. If there is, if the rapture happens, which it does say in Thessalonians, we will be caught up. But I am a post-trib person. I think it's going to happen at the end. I think, that we're going to, if we're here, we're going to have to live through that stuff if we can survive. Not many of us will survive because they're going to make it their grand mission to kill us all. Huh?
Very hard.
Very hard. Yeah, exactly. What we're seeing now is going to pale greatly in comparison to what is going to happen during that time. And things now are, sad to say, as bad as we see this world getting and everything else, but the war on Christians, yes, it's bad in some countries. It's bad in some places of the earth. People are getting killed every day, and I don't dispute that, and I don't deny that. But it's not as bad as it was late first century, when the New Testament was getting written, when Hebrews was getting written, when, and then the first few centuries after that, where, Nero, the Emperor Nero, came into power after Caesar and burned Rome down, and then wanted and blamed it on the Christians. And so everybody would go after the Christians, and they were using them. They were throwing, we know they were throwing them into the Colosseum, and they were getting devoured by lions, and they were using them as human torches, and they were arresting them all, rounding them all up, and everything. And we don't have that in most countries now. Okay? But that was pretty prevalent throughout the world then. That Christians, and the world was not as expanded as it was now. We didn't know about the Western part of the world, over here and whatever. But that was pretty prevalent. And the Bible tells us it's going to get back to that. And so, but I don't think we're near that point yet. But a lot of commentators will say that this is a picture of, because Enoch was just taken up into heaven, that this is a picture of the rapture. So, and just to explain my position on the post-trib is, I believe that when Jesus comes back, right before he comes back, we are going to be caught up to heaven, because he says when he comes back towards the end of Revelation, it says that when he comes back, he will bring his church back with him. He will bring all the people that have died and gone on before us. He will bring them back with him, and then even Paul says in Thessalonians that all of us will be caught up and taken up to him, caught up with him in the air, and then we will be with him. So he's taking us out of the earth before the final battle. And the best way I can describe it is like right now we have a situation with Iran. Okay? So not that that's a country where it's a big tourist spot for Americans, but if it was, okay, what would we have done before we were going to go and attack another country? What does a country do? If you're going to attack another country, what does a country do? Do they tell their citizens to get out of that country? If you want to be safe, get out of that country. We're closing our embassy. Get out of that country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, when the embassy closes, that's a telltale sign you're about to be attacked.
Yep.
You better get ready. But that's what they do. They take all their people out. So why would God not pull all of his people out before the final battle, when everything, and in that final battle, not only will Satan and his demons be destroyed, be defeated and cast into the lake of fire, and all those that are non-believers that have not believed and proclaimed and taken the mark, especially at the end days and whatever, that are still on the earth, they'll be thrown in with them. Anybody that doesn't believe will be thrown in with them. But the earth is going to be burned by fire, and it will be created new again. Because fire does create new. Fire destroys, but what comes in after, it's like whenever we have a lot of these brush fires and wildfires and things like that throughout the wildfires aren't good, but it does come in, the stuff grows back, it comes back in. It does refreshen, it does replenish the earth and give the earth a chance to. Right. Yeah. So.
It's like that house, past the house last week that had burned and the roof was all caved in and stuff. Past the house this morning, they had knocked it all down, and I said, I bet there's going to be a new house coming up there,
right.
Rebuild right there,
yep.
Because they cleaned it off and got rid of all that.
Yeah. So.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But I mean, fire does, and it talks, the Bible speaks about being purified by fire. You want your faith to be purified by fire. You want your faith to be, your faith is going to be tested. Your faith in God is going to be tested, and it's going to be like a fire. And so, but doesn't fire refine gold? Make gold more pure? Make it better?
Mm-hmm.
If it stands up to the fire, then that's pure gold. Yeah, exactly. Definitely gold. I want some of that. So, but yeah. So, but that's what I think is going to happen. But a lot of people do equate this to that. This is like what happened with Enoch is an early picture of what will happen when we are called up to. Now we all can disagree and have our disagreements about when it'll happen. Great. Fine. Trust me. I hope I'm wrong on my belief. Okay. But everything I read in the Bible kind of leads me to think that, because Jesus went out of his way to tell us about what the last days would be like and what to watch out for and the signs and not to fall into these traps. Okay, if we're not going to be here, why would he waste his time telling the disciples that?
Mm.
And I think it's a bad move on the church's part to be proclaiming, and I'm not saying here, but I'm just saying the church in general. I don't think we should be preaching that we get the escape clause out of this, because then you're getting Christians that are just banking on that. When, first of all, we don't know, you could die long before then, you know. But I mean, if you're following God, then okay, fine. But, you know, I think it kind of makes for sometimes weak Christians, because then they're just like, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about suffering. I don't have to worry about this. We see the prosperity gospel now proclaimed throughout this area, you know, throughout the country and world and whatever, where it's, hey, you come to Christ, everything's going to be awesome. You're going to have fame and riches and everything. That's not what my Bible reads, and that's not what my life has been like. Not at all. There are a lot of days I'm at work and I'm just like, why, God? Why? You know?
I say that every morning. You know that. Why have I got to get up and go to work?
Right, you know. So he's like, Adam, you're the one that did this. He said because you sinned, the work would be toilsome. So
Yeah.
blaming it all on Adam. So,
Gotta
but
blame it on somebody.
yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, so yeah, so that's kind of my take on that. But Enoch, basically, bottom line is that Enoch walked. He had his testimony was righteous. He walked with God. He was close to God. So much, in fact, that of all the people that God could have taken, he took Enoch. And so that's quite a statement.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we should be trying to make our faith stand out, you know, and be one that it's, you know. I've heard it said, you know, God puts your picture on his refrigerator, because we, you know how we have kids and we put their pictures on our refrigerator or whatever stuff. You know, God puts our picture on his refrigerator. Well, you know, if your faith is walking good enough, then maybe he puts your picture at the top. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so, but I do know that, you know, people like Billy Graham and Charles Stanley and Billy Sunday and, you know, so many preachers that have done so much work for God over the years and walked in faith and everything, they've all experienced death. So I don't think that this is something that God does. God doesn't do this on a regular basis. So if I'm missing next week, don't just assume God took me. Start asking questions about her.
Oh.
So,
Wow.
so anyways, yeah. So,
Tell
so,
them how you feel.
yeah, you know. So, you know, and since I said that, since I know my sister watches, you know. So yeah, no, just kidding. So, but anyways, all right. So let's.
The phone will be ringing on the way home.
Yeah. Let's talk real quick about Noah. We all know the story of Noah, right?
Right.
Built a huge boat. Okay. It's talked about. That's in Genesis 5 as well, I think, or maybe that's 6. But yeah, Genesis 6 talks about Noah. 6:9 through 12, it says Noah pleases God. This is the I didn't want to read the genealogy. The earth was so corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, and all the flesh and corrupt in their way on the earth. You know? But Noah and his family were found to be righteous. Oh, here it is, verse 8. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. His faith was strong, and he did what he believed. He walked with God. Okay, it doesn't mean he was perfect, because we know later on, after the flood and everything, that he built a vineyard and he got a little crazy one night in his vineyard, and you know, just got drunk and was naked, and, you know, did did some things, just kind of passed out because he was so drunk. And so, but yeah. So none of these people are perfect. And that's the thing. None of these people that we're talking about are perfect. But how much faith do you have to have? Or do you, let me rephrase it. Do you have enough faith that if you had never seen a drop of rain in your whole life, never seen a drop of rain, and God speaks to you and says, I'm going to give you instructions. I want you to build a boat. Because it's going to rain and I'm going to flood the earth. And I want you to save the human race by the ones that you're going to have on this boat with you. Do you have enough faith to even start that process? Again,
Saying nobody's seen water on earth.
nobody had seen rain. There was rain. There was
No,
there wasn't rain. There was oceans, and what it was is, and we see in early Genesis where it talks about that the ground was watered from like a mist or whatever that came out of the earth. So it wasn't, but the rain did not come from the sky. A lot of big time scientific guys that are creationists believe that there was like a vapor canopy that God had placed over the earth that covered the earth, and that kind of like a, I guess, greenhouse effect or something like that, that it would moisture the earth through that, but you couldn't see it rain. It just kind of absorbed, like the dew on the earth. We don't see the dew fall, but the dew's there in the morning. Okay, kind of like that. Okay, that's how they got their water and stuff and everything. That's how God provided for them until the point of Noah. And then those same scientific guys believed that God broke the water canopy when he flooded the earth. And that's why it flooded the earth, because there was so much water in that water canopy up there. So, but again, I don't see that in the Bible, but it hadn't rained. We know it hadn't rained to that point. So would you have enough faith to do what God had asked you to do? Or would you think, I'm losing my mind. I've already gotten into the wine too much. So,
Have he already had conversations with God?
we don't know that, but maybe God talked with these people kind of on a regular basis that were close to him. As we see it with Abraham, he talked to, which we'll get to next week, but we see that he talked with Abraham pretty regularly.
Has Noah seen any miracles?
Don't know. We just know that he pleased
That's a lot
God.
of faith.
That is a lot of
He
faith.
hasn't seen anything to know for a fact that God can do this, God can do that. That's exactly what we're had. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're not recorded, so I can't speak to if he saw them or not. But yeah, that takes a lot of faith, does it not?
Yeah.
How about the faith to spend 120 years doing it?
With people
I
laughing
don't want
at
to
you.
live 120.
Not working, building a boat.
No. Right. But you got to remember that this is before God shortened the lifespan. It's after the flood, he shortened the lifespan to 120 years or whatever. This was before. Everybody was living 800, 900, almost 1,000 years. But the thing of it is that when you're going to live to be 1,000 years old, so
120.
what's 50, 60 years old for us now would be probably, 500, 600, 700 years old then? So these people were having kids until they were well into their hundreds. Yeah. So, would you spend 120 years doing it? Especially.
I wonder if God's encouraging them for the 120.
Well, yeah, I would think so.
Because we know the
Don't
people
know.
were making fun of him.
Yeah. It says in here, and I don't know exactly where, but it does say in here how old Noah was when he got on the ark. And he was already well along. He was already several hundred years old. But it might be when he died. It says he died. Nations, genealogy of Noah. Da, 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 da. Sons. No, I don't want. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Okay, Noah. Okay, so here you go. Noah was 600 years old when he entered the ark. Because it says Noah lived after the flood 350 years. And he says he lived a combined total of 950 years. That's in Genesis 9, 28 and 29. So
How old when you went in the ark?
he was 600.
Methuselah, 969 years.
Yeah. Yep. He was and he's credited with being, I think, the oldest, the one that lived the longest.
And it was 9 what?
900.
960 and 9 years.
This says Noah's 600th year, 2nd month, 17th day.
Okay.
Was when.
Right. So, hey, so Noah would have started on the ark at 480 years old.
My bones hurt now.
I'm tired now.
Exactly.
But again, like I say, times were different then, and he was probably feeling middle-aged man at that point,
But we
So-
don't know
No.
what they considered as a year.
That's true too.
Well, true. Because calendars were different then and things like that. I mean, but, again, we have to take the word of God at its, but he spent, just saying that it was basically about the same as we count a year, 120 years to build this thing. And nobody believed him. He told others about what he was doing. Because, they all came to him and said, "What are you doing? Why are you building that thing?" I told her this morning, I said, "The one thing I want to do is go to the Ark up in Kentucky. I want to go see that thing."
Billy went.
I know Billy went, yeah. She come back and she went up there and asked him how they got the poopy off the Ark. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Because that was a question we had one time, how they,
Wow.
but yeah, but she went up there and found out for herself. Yeah, I'd like to go at some point. And see it, because it's, and then just the simple fact of that took them 120 years to build this thing. God patiently waited 120 years. A lot of people will say Noah was the worst preacher in history because he had 120 years to preach to people and never had a salvation.
And he never I don't feel good. I'm gonna take a day or week off or whatever. He diligently worked at it for 120 years.
Basically, yes. And he didn't have rain days.
That's
Because
right.
there wasn't no rain. Wasn't
right.
days where he couldn't work because it was raining.
Rain.
So for 120 years, that takes a lot of faith. And then, and God's talking to him through this time and gave him all the instructions on how to do it and everything else. I'm sure as he went along, God gave more instructions. Okay, you've done this part now. do this and now do that. Here's how you do this. Here's how you pitch it. You make the pitch and all that stuff. Here's how you watertight, seal it, and everything. I mean, it's God spoke to him all that time. So is it easier because God speaks to us? Would it be easier because God spoke to him to do it?
Sure, that would help.
You sure that would help?
Yeah.
Do you ever feel the Holy Spirit speaking to you?
Oh, yeah.
Does it help you to do things that God wants you to do? Yeah? Yeah. So we're basically a lot like the prophets that we see because God is speaking to us just through the Holy Spirit that indwells within each one of us. And
But
so,
do you think that God had to give him the strength to do that?
Exactly.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And not to be frustrated with the fact that nobody's listening to him,
Yeah.
All of his neighbors are calling him cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And,
And the strength to keep the inner strength to keep doing it after
Right.
he's been called.
Right.
Noah has got to be the worst preacher that ever lived. 120 years, nobody believed it.
Right, exactly. So I mean, yeah, but that's the way it is. So I mean, so yeah, but he had the faith. He had strong faith because he was willing to do this. God told him to do this, and he did it. He didn't question. We didn't see where he questioned and whatever. I mean, he didn't say, "Let me go home and talk to the wife." He didn't say, no, he just did it.
Well, I'm sure back then they didn't worry about life.
Well, maybe not, but still, I mean,
You didn't hear what I said.
What?
And he went home and talked to the wife. It might not have took 120 years to heal.
So you're saying that the wife would have been smarter than God?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. But yeah, we go home and say, believe what God told me today. I mean, did he discuss it at all?
I'm sure he did because he got his sons on board. I'm sure his sons helped him and whatever and stuff. And then his whole family got in the ark. So, he had to convince them to get in the ark with him.
That's true too.
So
He had all the faith to build it, but they had to have the faith to get on it.
right. They had to have the faith to get on it. And the thing about the ark is, okay, God shut the door.
Yeah.
It wasn't them sitting there pulling a rope up and shutting the door because a ramp or whatever. No, God shut the door and sealed it
Mm-hmm.
once they were inside. And after that, nobody else could get in. And when the rain started, it talks about that people were outside wanting to get in, but it was too late. And that's going to be how it's going to be in the final days once Jesus comes back. That's
He
it.
just didn't have faith.
You just didn't have the faith. That's it. So, so I need to wrap it up. So, but we see, and Jesus warns us in Matthew 24:36 through 42, that there will be many that will not listen like there were in the day of Noah when he comes back. There's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to believe that Christ is coming back. Jesus will return. Aren't going to believe in God. No matter how much we tell them and how much we try to show them, they're not going to believe it. Sad to say. It's going to be like the days of Noah. So, but the thing we take away from this is we need to have that faith where and just God puts me on these topics to talk about because he's trying to drill into my head something. And I've been we've talked about how a lot of times I argue with God. God wants me to do something and I'm like, no, not doing that. Not happening. No, God, get somebody else. I'm a lot like
You end up doing it?
till I end up doing it.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I end up a lot like Moses. We saw Moses, so he has me go through the life of Moses. Okay, thank you, God. I'm getting the picture. Now I'm getting the picture about, okay, these guys just willingly did what God asked them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And what's my problem? Why do I think that I'm better than them? So trust me, so my head's been hurting a lot lately from getting that God-sized 2x4 upside it, you know. So, but anyways, so all right. Questions, comments, thoughts? No.
Never felt that hard on the ark. Just God told Noah to do it, so he did it. But a lot of outside forces that could have stopped him.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, people could have really gone out of their way and tried to tear down what he was
I was
doing
going
and
to
stuff,
say they
you
could
know?
have destroyed.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, so, you know, but and can you imagine what the neighbors were saying? That crazy Noah, look at what he's doing over there. You know?
Like me when we passed that house this morning, I said, "Look at all that stuff on the porch."
Yeah,
That's the same thing.
yeah, exactly. So, you know, but, so, all right.